Okay, so have you ever been in that situation, right, where you're like staring down a deadline? Or maybe it's a blank page, that writer's block thing.
Oh, yeah.
Or even just like trying to get yourself motivated to like actually do that workout you promised yourself you would do.
Every day.
And you just wish you could flip a switch and like channel some of that like inner athlete.
Yeah, that mental toughness, right?
Exactly. And that's kind of what we're diving into today. We're talking about the athlete's mindset,
Yeah.
pushing beyond your limits. And this isn't just for people who like run marathons or whatever. No,
Not at all.
this is for all of us, right?
It's about tapping into that inner drive we all have.
Totally. And one of the first things that they hit on in this article is resilience. And not just like, oh, you fall down, you get back up,
Right.
but actually using those setbacks
Yeah.
to like, I don't know.
Fuel you forward.
Yeah. But that's way easier said than done.
Oh, absolutely. It's easy to say be resilient, but how do you actually do it? And I think that's where this whole idea of reframing comes in. The article talks about looking at those so-called failures, not as like the end of the road,
Right.
but as like important pit stops on a much bigger journey.
Like that. It's like a learning curve instead of like
Exactly.
it takes the sting out a little bit.
It does, yeah.
It reminds me of Michael Jordan getting cut from his high school basketball team.
Oh, yeah.
Like, can you imagine being told like you're not good enough and then becoming, well,
Arguably the best
yeah.
to ever play the game.
Talk about resilience.
Talk about resilience.
See, now that's a lesson we can all take to heart.
Okay.
Okay, but resilience is only part of the equation,
Right.
right? There's also this whole thing about focus, which, let's be honest,
But tell me about it.
in this world of distractions, it's like a superpower almost.
It is. And it's something that the source really emphasizes, training your mind to hone in on what truly matters, to block out all that noise. And I think of athletes, right? Like they're in a stadium full of people, all these distractions.
Screening fans, the pressure's on.
Exactly. And yet they're able to just quiet all of that down.
To like sink that free throw.
Yes. Or nail that dive. It's incredible.
It is incredible. But what's the secret sauce? How do they actually do it? I know the article talked about visualization,
Yeah.
but what does that even look like in real life?
Well, one technique they talked about is something called process visualization.
Right.
And basically, it's where you're mentally rehearsing the steps of a challenging task. Like, let's say you have to give a big presentation.
Ugh, yeah. Nerve-wracking.
Right. Instead of letting your mind go to that place of like fear and what ifs, you're going to visualize yourself calmly setting up, delivering each point, with confidence.
Engaging with the audience.
Exactly.
So you're basically creating like a mental movie of yourself
Yes.
succeeding.
Exactly.
And your brain starts to see that as like, oh, this could actually happen.
And the more you practice it, the more you're training your brain to stay present, in that moment, focused on the task, rather than getting swept up in all those anxieties.
It's almost like you're giving your brain like a cheat sheet for success.
Yeah, exactly.
So speaking of training, that brings us to another big one from the athlete's mindset.
Yeah.
Discipline.
Right.
And I'll admit, this one doesn't always feel as like glamorous or exciting, right?
Yeah.
As having like visualization superpowers.
Yeah. I think discipline sometimes gets kind of a bad rap.
It does.
We think about it like we have to restrict ourselves. We have to force ourselves to do things that we don't really want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like nobody really wants to like
Yeah.
do the dishes,
Exactly.
but it's got to get done.
But the article, it wants us to look at it differently.
Okay. So how should we be thinking about discipline then?
So think of it more as that bridge, right? Between you set a goal and then you actually achieving it.
Yeah. Okay.
It's those little things, those daily choices that
Oh,
you're
yeah.
making
Okay.
that really align with what you want, even when it's not the easy choice.
Yeah. Even when you'd rather be doing something else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's keeping that long-term vision in mind, I guess, and realizing that those small actions, those disciplined actions, are actually what's moving us forward.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about being consistent and putting in the work, knowing that it's going to add up over time. It's like the article even compares it to like athletes training their muscles. Like you wouldn't go to the gym one day
Right.
and expect to be like totally ripped. It takes time. It takes consistency.
Small actions over time. Yeah. Not just one big burst and then you're done.
Exactly.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because we all have those days where we'd rather, I don't know, like hit snooze or scroll on social media or whatever it is. But those little choices add up.
It do, for better or for worse.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? That actually ties in really well with the final element of this whole athlete's mindset that we're gonna unpack today, and that is the whole idea of a growth mindset,
Yeah.
which I am so fascinated by this concept.
Yeah, yeah, it's incredibly powerful. And the source, they actually talk about Carol Dweck's work on this,
Yes.
how it applies to athletic achievement.
Right.
And she found that the athletes that had that growth mindset, they viewed challenges more as opportunities, like to learn to improve, not as these threats to their ego.
It's not a judgment on them as a person.
Right.
It's just an opportunity, like you said, to learn and grow. It's so interesting that you mentioned that because there's this part here in the article where they talk about a study that Dweck and her colleagues did. And they basically found that even just teaching students about the growth mindset, like just the idea that intelligence isn't fixed,
Right.
that you can grow it,
Yeah.
it actually led to better math scores.
Wow. Just from knowing that, that's amazing.
It's so wild, right?
It is.
It's like it shows you the power of what we believe.
Yeah.
Like if we're approaching something, any kind of challenge with this understanding that, like, okay, I can learn and grow from this, it changes our whole approach. We're not held back by that self-doubt as much or that fear of failure.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? There's a quote in here that I just love. It says, "Athletes with a growth mindset view challenges as opportunities for growth rather than as threats to their self-esteem."
Yeah.
Like how powerful is that,
So true.
right? So to kind of recap here, we covered a lot of ground. We talked about resilience, focus, discipline, having that growth mindset.
Right.
But I think some of our listeners might be thinking, like, okay, that's all well and good, but like, how does this actually apply to my everyday life?
Hmm.
It's, you know, it's one thing to talk about it in the context of, like professional sports and stuff.
Right.
But can we really apply those same principles to like, our careers or our creative projects or even just like
Yeah.
dealing with like the everyday stuff that life throws at us?
Absolutely. And the article actually gives some really good examples of how we can do that. Like they talked about applying for jobs, for example,
Oh, yeah.
which can be so disheartening.
The worst.
Right. When you're putting yourself out there, you're getting rejection after rejection. It's easy to feel defeated.
Tell me about it. Like sending out resumes can feel like, I don't know,
Right.
like you're just like throwing messages in a bottle and hoping for the best.
Exactly. But imagine like that person with that athlete's mindset, that resilience we were talking about, they're not going to see those no's as the end, right?
Hey.
They're going to use that as an opportunity to learn, to get better, to refine their pitch.
Should come back even stronger next time.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they're using it,
Yeah.
they're using those rejections to train for the big leagues.
Yes, exactly.
And I bet you could say the same thing about, once you actually land the job too, right?
Oh, 100%. Think about those tight deadlines, the difficult projects, maybe a boss that's, a little demanding. It's all about tapping into that discipline,
Right.
being able to stay focused, prioritize tasks, even when things get crazy.
So it's not just about like working harder. It's about,
Working smarter.
yeah, working smarter, more strategically.
Yeah,
Like an athlete would plan their training,
exactly. Yeah, having a game plan.
having that game plan and that growth mindset that we were talking about. I bet that plays a big role in that too.
Huge. Like think about if you're faced with a new challenge at work, something that maybe you've never done before, right? And instead of thinking, "Oh, I can't do this," or "I'm going to mess this up," you see it as a chance to learn.
Right. To expand your skill set.
Exactly.
It's like you're leveling up in real life.
I love that.
And it makes me realize too that this isn't even just about, achieving some big, external goal, right? This is about like,
Personal growth.
Yes.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be anything, like picking up a new instrument or learning a new language.
right, or even just like
I'm just showing up.
being a better friend, partner. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Being more present in our relationships. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this has been such a good conversation. I feel like I have so much to think about now. But before we wrap things up here, with this whole idea of the athlete's mindset, I want to leave our listeners with this. Like, what is one small step
Right.
that you can take this week to kind of tap into that
Yeah.
inner athlete?
Yes.
Right. Maybe it is. Maybe it's just approaching a challenge. Not as something to be afraid of, but as an opportunity to learn.
Right.
Or maybe it's, trying out that visualization technique that we're
Yeah.
talking about, or even just committing to like one small act of discipline every day,
Love it.
whatever it is. just remember, you have that strength in you.
You do.
It's just about learning how to tap into
You
it.
unleash it. Yeah.
There you go. Unleash it. So that is a wrap on another deep dive. Hopefully you enjoy this exploration of the athlete's mindset.
Yes.
And we hope you feel ready to go out there and tackle your own challenges, right?
Absolutely.
With that renewed sense of purpose. So until next time, stay curious and keep striving for those victories, big or small.